And we're live. All right, everybody, thank you for tuning in either live or watching the recording afterwards to the Business Emergency Room. I'm Aaron Spool. I am one of the hosts. My co-host here, Charles McCormick, is here as well. So you can see him on the video there. And we've got a special guest here, Greg Arsenault. Greg is, I have a huge personal relationship with Greg. He is the owner, actually, of two gyms, CrossFit gyms in New Jersey. One I've been going to for a bit over 8 years. I've been an admirer of Greg as just not only as a fitness person, but as an entrepreneur and a community builder. And throughout this whole pandemic that's been about, Greg has been at the forefront, at least in my personal life, of creating a fitness community and making sure that we all stay healthy. He has a wonderful story to tell about how this hit, what he went through, all his thought processes, and then thoughts afterwards for when things start opening up. I could think of nobody better to have on right now than Greg, so I will kick it off to Greg. Greg, you want to do a quick intro of a little bit about Gorilla Fitness, a little bit, tiny bit about CrossFit, kind of like the business that you run, and then we'll start from there.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on, and thank you for the very kind introduction. So that was very nice. Like you said, we've gone back a long time, and quick little background on me is I spent 12 years in finance on a trading desk. A story many of us have heard over and over again, and it had just become too much of not being happy with what I did and not having a real passion for what I did, and decided to dive into what I really enjoyed doing. And at that time of my life, I had the opportunity to do so. I had a wife that was also working, so it afforded me the opportunity to really kind of dive in and go after what I wanted. And I did it, and I did it 100%, both feet in right away. And I opened it. It was a CrossFit gym from day one. This is back in 2008, and started with a 1,000 square foot facility in Montclair, New Jersey, with not a single member. I worked out the most in my life at this point because I was the only guy in that, and that was a lot of fun for a while. And then got that first person came in the door, and it was almost like a magical experience for me. I had never experienced this before with regards to starting something brand new from scratch. Somebody walked through the door, I put them through a workout, they turned around and said, "Great, I'll join." And I asked them why. Why are you joining? There's no one here. And they're like, "That just kicked my ass and I loved it, and let's try." And from there, it just grew. And the lessons from that day forward have been tremendous. And the lessons from that day to right now prepared me very much for something so unknown and unknowable like this pandemic. But again, all those lessons over the past 12 years really did prepare me for it.
Great. So let's just say, pandemic hits. What is your initial reaction? So let's say the news comes out, starting to trickle in. I remember some of the announcements, and it's just like, what was your thought process, and how did you navigate the very beginning? How did you assess and decide what to do?
Yeah, well, I mean, the initial reaction is like, wow, this really stinks. This is not going to be fun. But I did not feel for a second that we wouldn't figure this out. And I think that, and anything I do say or my feelings about this is also very personal, right? It's what works for me and my community. I don't present answers to everybody's businesses or how they do things. So these are very personal for me, and they work really well for me. And the lack of fear came from really understanding and knowing my community of people. So I feel like I'm already steps ahead in a lot of ways when any kind of issues arise, right? This was just another one. So having this, immediate shutdown was certainly a challenge, but I knew from past experience and how I've always dealt with the members of the gym was to just be upfront and honest with them from day one, be very transparent with them, and be very genuine with them. So nothing changes, right? The situation may have changed, but how I handled it and how I'm continuing to handle it, just it was the same as it always was. You know, be honest about the challenges we're going to face, be genuine about how I'm going to approach them, and be transparent and continue to tell the member base what's going on, good and bad, good and bad. You know, there were times throughout this, and you've been privy to my talks to the members and my emails that I send out, when I say I'm a little bit scared. You know, I'm a little bit scared with the lack of information we're getting, and I'm not really sure what I'm going to be able to do here, but here's my decisions right now, and they may change. Kind of a long-winded answer to that question, but I think the other thing that I want to make clear too, that I asked for right away, was for patience and understanding. And that's something I really did learn, you know, through years and years of doing things, that what has always worked to my favor and the favor of the community itself, was to just be patient and be understanding. And I think once you've built trust with your organization, or, you know, whether it be your team or your clientele, it's easy to ask for those things. And I think if your team and your clientele allows you a little bit of time and a little bit of understanding to figure things out, it'll always be okay.
So I kind of want to go down two paths here. So what did you do for, you know, obviously the clients, but also what are your employees? And I actually want to start with we'll start whichever one you want first, because I think I would say the most directly impacted health-wise, yeah, granted fitness health would be the clientele like me, is your employees and your employee base. And I can only imagine what's going on through their heads. So pick which one you want to start with first.
The individual employee?
Yeah, how you handle the individual employees and their concerns, or how do you handle the client base? Let's whichever one. Let's do employees first.
Yeah. And employees is a good place to start, because it's, you know, it's what you present with you and your team to the members. So having your team on board and having them understand what you're doing was really important for me. So that was immediate. We got everybody on right away, and first and foremost, you know, we made sure, or I made sure, that they understood all of the challenges that were presented to us, you know, front end and back end, and what my plan was. So I laid out the details of what my plan was to protect not only them, but to protect the members as well, and protect the business as a whole, so that they were in a more comfortable position from day one. And if they're in a comfortable position, then look, members are certainly going to talk to them more times than to me. So having them understand right away that we're in control of this, and we're going to continue to manage the situation as it evolves, and adjust where we need to, but know that we're doing this together. So getting them on board with that right away was super important. As you know, Aaron, too, the team that I have at both locations are as equally passionate and caring about the folks that we work with, that they were very upfront with what their needs were too. Like, we want to continue to help, and here's how we can do it. And here's what we need to be able to do those things. So, you know, there were some coaches of mine that right up front were like, look, I have other jobs. I have another job, or my significant other really is the breadwinner. I'm good. Don't worry about me. I want to keep going though. You know, so they gave me a lot of help in those areas. And again, I'm not sure that this works for every company or organization, but that was some of the give back from my team right away. And then there's other team members that this is their bread and butter. And we made sure to let them know that we were going to stay educated on all of the opportunities that are going to be provided to us, to make sure that they stay made whole through this. And do the best we can with that, and be very up to date with them week to week. And I did that with my key employees that are full-time with me. This is where we are every week. So they always knew where they stood, and they never felt nervous or didn't, you know where things were headed for them. You know, having them feel comfortable and confident in the plan made it pretty easy and seamless to relay that plan to the member base. Because again, that that conversation can get disjointed, and it's like a game of telephone, like, here's my plan. But if it's not clear to your team, and then your team starts sharing a different plan with your clientele, stuff gets kind of ugly. But thankfully that did not happen.
Okay, so what were these? So you mentioned that you shared your plan with your team. What did you might have already just kept the same, but what did you institute with your team? Did you do a weekly Zoom session with them? Did you do a weekly call? Like, was it how many times did you guys meet? And that's kind of part one, like the logistics you did. The second is that how did you ensure they had not only that they had alignment, they agreed with you, they were like cool with what was going on, but also that they understood what was going on? Because as you said, it's just like you and I can have a conversation. I think that you're meaning X as like a team, like, oh, this is the plan, and I start, and you're saying, no, it's over here, and we're misaligned by accident. We both thought we were in agreement, but we weren't. So logistically, what did you do, like from like a meetings perspective? And then the second part is like, how did you make sure your team, what were the tools and tricks and tips that you had to make sure your team and you were actually on board?
Yeah, so what I made very clear to them right away was that what was not going to change at all was how we present our core values to our member base day in and day out through running classes. The only thing that was changing was the platform which we were doing it. And as many of the folks watching right now can imagine, the platform simply changed from being within the gym walls to now being on a Zoom version of a fitness class. But we were going to continue as a team and as individual coaches to present these classes the very same way that we always did, and nothing was going to change. In all honesty, one thing I was a little bit nervous about was their ability and my ability to present in this format, right? It was something very new to me. And one thing that I learned a lot from my team on, quite frankly. Once they really kind of thrived in this atmosphere of running the classes on these Zoom sessions. And I would sit back and watch some of them run these classes. I'm really learning some tools and tactics from them on how to present better in this format. So that was kind of almost a fun experience. I didn't think it was going to go as well as it did. But I think, again, letting them know that I expected nothing different from them other than it's going to be in front of a TV screen and not in the four walls of the gym that we were usually in. So yeah, I mean, that kind of answers the logistical side of things. There wasn't look, there's not a lot of moving parts here, right? This is I'm running a gym. It's not rocket science. So I think just keeping, we didn't make it difficult. We kept it simple. It didn't need to be anything more than that. And that's another thing. I think when the clientele and the team I had, gave me that time to figure things out, and they gave me their patience and understanding, it allowed me to sit back and be like, all right, I don't have to overreact to this. I can calmly move into this the right way. Maybe we don't need to change all that much, certainly being a little bit more creative with what we did and how we run a class. But outside of that, we kept things simple, and by keeping them simple, they actually turned out to be very effective.
Oh, that's great. As a member, I would say, yeah, flat out, it was great. I would say the thing I was most impressed with was your honesty. And what was it like? So you had said, I remember you would do these, now I call them the Greg monolith, the Greg fireside chats that you'll tape and you'll put on Facebook, talking to the community. And I remember you saying that this was a new experience for you, and it's just somewhat uncomfortable not having that. Now you're natural. Look at this. You're on the business emergency room, and you're perfect.
It's funny you asked that question, because this was throughout this experience, going through this pandemic, I've learned so much. And one of those things, and you read books and you listen to podcasts, and the term du jour is being vulnerable, right? And that's what really works. I honestly didn't understand that. I did not understand what that meant. I'm typically a guy that does not like to ask for help. I want to dig down myself and figure it out. And, for me, for the longest time, I thought asking for help was a sign of weakness. And this experience made me figure out what being vulnerable was. And what you just kind of mentioned was where I started to feel it. When I got in front of I said, look, I need to be in front of my people. I'm obviously not in front of them on a daily basis in the gym. I've got to be in front of them on this new platform. I'm not comfortable with it. It's something I'm going to have to get comfortable with it. But I was very upfront with that right away. Like, hey guys, this is new for me. I'm not super comfortable right now, but I'm going to get there. And it became easier to do. Again, just being honest, right? If I just spoke from the heart and what my honest thoughts were at that moment, it became easy, and it made me also, again, really understand, all right, this is what being vulnerable is. It's just being honest and genuine, with the people that you're working with and for.
Awesome.
That was huge for me.
It meant a lot to me. I can tell you that flat out. So before we get into all the people side of things, what were you mentioned some of the programs. What were just like the simple programs, like the SBA and things like that? Which were the ones that you kind of tackled and used?
Right away, it was the EIDL, and that was super simple. And within 3 days, there was money in my account, and there was obviously the PPP program that we reached out for as well. That, in hindsight now, it was not so terrible. I mean, in the moment, you're sitting there every day thinking, I'm not getting the money and this is a disaster. And, I send in paperwork. They tell me it's not the right paperwork. And, well, what paperwork do you need? There's no way to correspond and understand what you need. And those things were challenging and scary, right? But I just kept sending in paperwork and then listening to the news and like, okay, they're out of money. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm not getting the money, and then we're going to do it again. And but then again, in hindsight, looking back, it was like, that wasn't too terrible. And, the money came through. It was helpful. Now you start moving forward into, how do you use this money? And, you and I have talked about this, and I've asked you the questions. I'm like, how do I use it? Should I use it? And then what am I supposed to be doing to make sure that, I can, have it forgiven at the end? I mean, all the questions that everybody's asking that still not everybody really kind of knows the answers to. So.
Awesome. And shameless plug, we have links for all the stuff we'll send out for just our advice on this. You can also reach out to Charles, who's a super expert in this as well. Before we start going on to the community inside, I want to basically open this up for questions. So anyone, if you want to put a question into the chat live now, you can. If not, no pressure whatsoever. I can talk with Greg all day. We've got one question that came up, and I'm gonna ask it now, but let's hold off until we talk about your clients. It's like, what things that you're doing now that once things open up, you'll continue to do. So I'm going to put a pin in that, because I want to talk with customer journey first, and then we'll come back. But we'll definitely ask that question. Charles, anything you want to ask right now, or just we keep going through? We'll just keep going through. So let's talk about the customer journey. Let's talk about you've been very fortunate. You've built a great community over the years. So you had something that, a number of other companies might not have had. But still, it's one of the businesses that is the most affected by a pandemic is a face-to-face in-person gym. Mm-hmm. So walk us through that journey. Walk us through like the beginning steps. So communicating out initially to the clientele, me and everyone else, and then what you and let's walk a little bit through that to like kind of like present day. And we'll break it up a little bit, but let's call it about the beginning. So this thing hits. Mm-hmm. You sat down with your team. You reach out to your members. Say, hey, I remember that. Give me a little bit of patience. We're here with you. Then what do you do?
Then we acted pretty quickly. Look, you know this demographic, and this is not just my gym. This is fitness geeks in general. That you take my gym away, and I'm freaking out. I'm losing my gains immediately. So we knew we had to act pretty quickly on providing some kind of a service for folks to keep them engaged. And that was, as you know, again, we instituted the Zoom classes very quickly. That was pretty seamless into those. We think again, I surprised myself with how well we designed those classes to stay as congruent as we could with what we typically offer in a class with barbells and dumbbells and the like. We did offer to lend equipment to members. I think that was something that went over really well for folks. I didn't know how that was going to turn out. It was not something I had seen happening anywhere else. And I had talked with my buddy Joe Jinks, who runs my Paramus facility with me. And I said, what can we do? And again, I think this goes for all things that I've done. Everything always comes from the perspective of what's best for the member, right? What is going to be best for them? And we'll worry about everything else after that. Usually good things happen if you do that. So, we had agreed that, we could lend out equipment to folks. And, we put up a time the next day, hey, please come in during this time. And it was just one after another. I mean, we just spent the 2 to 3 hours of people just walking in, single file line, one after another, taking out equipment, and we simply just wrote their names down, what they took, they left, and then we designed the workouts based around the equipment that they took. And I have to say, it was one of, entering into this really kind of challenging period and scary period for people. It was a nice interaction to have with everybody, to be able to also talk with them for that few seconds. Hey, here, you want a 20-pound dumbbell? Here you go. We also gave everybody like a free jump rope, right? I had all these big stock jump ropes that I use in the gym. I said, you know what, let's give them the jump ropes. And it was just a nice time to, in addition to the conversations I was having with folks via email and via the videos I would take and share on Facebook, this is a chance to again say, look, we've got you. Great to see you. Please stay connected with the Zoom classes. And that's how we're going to stay connected as a community. Because that was the most important thing for me, was to keep the glue and the cohesion of the community, seeing each other. That's what works so well for our gyms. I mean, certainly getting people physical results works and is important, but what really keeps our businesses together is that physical contact and community. And we've been able to maintain that through people just seeing each other through Zoom classes. I mean, the Zoom classes now, we almost have to kick people off at the end. It's very similar to being at the gym and your class is over and you linger and you talk. And today it was, I actually jumped on. I did not take my Zoom class today. My wife was on it. And I looked at my clock and I'm like, it's 10:20. I'm like, the class ended 20 minutes ago. And I went over and there's like 4 or 5 people just still talking. So, making that happen was really important for us.
That's great. One thing that I've noticed, I'm going to ask you this, is like, what changes have you seen in your employees? And one thing that, and I'll say just I was very surprised that how much we meant to them. Mm-hmm. Not that they weren't like saying this. It's always been more than a job to them, right? I've never thought that, but these are some fitness warriors here. They're all like, it's a tough bar to be a coach at Gorilla Fitness, and I was just so to see, as you mentioned, the vulnerability side, or just and they've always cared, like they cared, but I think there's been something else has been brewing with them, and I think you've mentioned. What do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I would love to, because it's another positive. I hate saying positive during this time. There's so much negative things that have happened for folks, but this has been another huge positive for our team. I've seen the team pull together through this. It was almost. They just started doing some amazing things and offering some amazing things to continue to keep the community together. And I, like you, look, I knew the team cared. I knew these guys and girls showed up every day working hard. I didn't know they cared this much. they really doubled down their efforts. The things that we would talk about on our Zoom calls together and the things that they would offer and be willing to do was endless. And I'm like, they really have a connection to the people that they work with. And what I started to see through this was, there's a lot of talk of a new normal, right? We all have to get comfortable with our new normal. And I really feel for us and my community and my team, we're about to embark on a better normal. There will be some new things, but I think we're going to elevate ourselves and our community to a much better normal. We have a team that is, look, if you're feeling that, Aaron, as a member, I know members are feeling that en masse. And I know the coaches are. I've seen, my coaching staff out on runs with members. Members are posting, look who I went out on a run with today. Things I have no idea are happening. And I only know because of social media. But I'm like, wow, there's Io with 3 and 4, Io, who is our head coach in Montclair. There he is with 2 or 3 members. They're on a hike together. I didn't orchestrate this. We didn't discuss this. This is just coming out of them, some good stuff coming out of it.
So Charles, anything you want to add? Because I was going to ask him a little bit about the customer base. Anything you want to pepper him with a question or two?
I think you guys are having a good conversation. I'm happy to chime in, wherever needed, but I don't want to interrupt the flow that you guys have going.
Cool. Just wanted to, Charles and I are a team here, so I always want to make sure. This is just a rare occasion that I happen to really intimately know one of our guests.
No,
so,
I'm enjoying the conversation as well. To kind of keep going in that same vein with regards to the team and moving into with the members itself, from a team perspective towards the members, I do also see this. We are so excited as a team right now because we are all feeling this together. Like, all right, this was a kind of a crappy time, but we pulled together through this. So now we're pretty eager and chomping at the bit to get back in the gym and almost share this kind of this joyful feeling that we're having as a team. Like, hey, we're a strong team. We're stronger than we thought we were. So we really want to get in there with the members and be able to really work with them even more, knowing that, we're a pretty darn good gym. We're going to be better. So I think the team is really excited about that. And I do think that opportunities like the one we're in now is a chance for any team, no matter what you're doing, to continue to or work on rebuilding your trust and confidence with your clientele. This is a real chance for any team to move forward and prove that they're worthy of the business that their folks are giving them.
So I'm going to ask, and you don't have to answer this next one because there's a couple things you said, and there's a lot of stuff I want to dive into. You said on the economic side. So and this is, I think, is very pertinent to a ton of businesses. Your offering through a Zoom class versus an in-person gym has changed. Now, I think it's incredibly effective. I'm very biased. I go into them. But how did you decide to deal with the economics of just charging members when the offering has changed? And we don't need specific examples, just like high level philosophy, whatever you're comfortable with sharing.
No, I'm comfortable sharing everything. It was another one of those moments, learning moments for me. Like, all right, we could go out of business. I mean, it could happen. I was honest about that with the member base. I was like, look, we all care about this place. Here's, if you can, again, this was the patience and understanding part. We totally understand if whatever these circumstances are for you, you have to, cancel your membership up. No questions asked. It will be done. Not a problem. If you can stick with us through this time, obviously that would be extremely helpful. And that first week of being presented with the dilemma of that particular question, that was all I did. It's like, if you have to cancel, we understand. If you can hang on right now, that would be really helpful. And give us some time to kind of educate ourselves as to what's going on here. How long could this possibly last? And what can we do to continue to keep this place together? You know, so within a week or so, we start, and I promised people that I would come up with some ideas. And within a week's time or week and a half time, we had some alternatives for folks. And we kind of laid them out for people like, hey, if you can continue to pay us and hold this thing together with us, great, thank you. If you cannot, we'll cancel your membership and bring it back when things come back. If there's, we had come up with an idea of amortizing a credit back to folks, right? So if this, you know, for easy math purposes, you know, you pay, $120 a month for a membership for us, and you continue to pay us that 120 this month. When we reopen and you come back, we're going to credit back your account, $10 a month for the next year and pay you back what you lent, what you paid for us during that shutdown time. And I have to say, in the entire member base between Montclair and Paramus, talking, close to 500 members, 2 people said, I'll take you up on the offer to, amortize kind of a credit back to me. Everybody else was like, leave me alone. I'm good. I want this place to be here when this is all over. And that's not to say that we haven't had people call in and say, hey, look, I just got furloughed. I just got laid off. I held on as long as I could, but now we get it. And every single time we got one of those, we said we understood. We were thankful for the time that they did stay with us, and please don't change their interaction and connection with us. Get on the Zoom calls, continue to take the Zoom classes. We're still your gym. And when you get back on your feet, you've helped to keep us on our feet, and we'll be here for you when things turn around and straighten up.
That's amazing. I was about to ask you, did you continue? I figured you would. You continue. Wow, you continue to give. That's I expected nothing less, but that's definitely a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
What about growing the business? Have you added any? Because that's an interesting thing. Because you're in a very unique business that you have an internal base that has been fortunate enough to hang on for various shit. Have you done anything or thought on anything to expand the base now, or is it just? I'm curious if any of that's come to mind, or it just was, let's focus on keeping afloat until the clouds start to lift.
That's a really big question, because I think the first thing that pops into my mind when you ask me that question is, and you've seen my expansion and kind of retraction over the years, but the only times I've ever gotten myself in trouble with my business is when I started chasing the wrong things. I started chasing, trying to, through ways that were not in my heart to make more money. And to answer your question right now, that's how I feel right now. That the thing that is most important to me right now is that my current member stays with us and stays happy and is continuing to get the service that they signed up for with us. That it's just I'm laser focused on that, which doesn't really leave me any room to think about, wow, how can I make some money here off of, potentially, what's going on. I'm not saying that's not an idea. It just hasn't, for me, that's not there at the moment. And you've seen, I've tried to do and add on other services and things to my business. And at the end of the day, I'm happiest and the business is the most successful when I stayed small and specialized with what I really enjoy doing.
That's great. I as a 8-year member, I can attest to that. I did enjoy all the other expansions, but I could be an outlier. I'm waiting for your yoga class to come back.
Never gonna happen.
I know. I can wait till I die. Here's
unfortunately, I've been on. Unfortunately, yoga studios are having a really tough time. I have a friend. They're in town with us. He just shut down his shop. It's and the conversation that we had was, it was just, it's funny because in my eyes, these are very similar, right? Very similar businesses. Why did my community really band together and his did not? I would love to understand that better. Like, what the heck happened there? Because for me, this was a remarkable experience to know how special the folks that we work with and for are. They really showed their true colors.
Well, it's you, and I can tell as a member, like I was just looking for anything that would pull me out of call it the COVID funk or whatever it is, of just this shell shock that I had. And I remember the first time I, dialed into the Zoom, and I felt so great afterwards. Here, granted, I was wrecked physically, but I was so great afterwards. It's like, because something was normal, something I was used to, something with my friends I saw again. Hadn't seen a person in ages, and that was, I don't know, big for me. Here's a personal question.
Well, I think not to cut you off, but I think Nancy, I noticed a comment from Nancy here that this was the only normal part of her day was her fitness class, right?
Yeah.
And I've heard that over and over and over again, that people are, please keep doing this, because it's it's the one part of the day where I can forget about, the dilemma that we're in right now, or it's the one part of the day where I can have some normalcy again and see people that I used to seeing. So I think it really, any gym that's doing this is really providing a fantastic service during this time.
I completely agree. I still have the kettlebell I borrowed from you guys. And on that note, so this, and we've got a little bit of time left. We got, 20 minutes left.
I have nothing but time.
I think we all have
This has been super fun for me. This is something new and exciting. Yeah.
We'll have to get you on again. Especially, I want to hear all the stories. So coming back, it's the clouds eventually going to lift. People are going. I don't know what's going to happen, but eventually, and none of us do, but there's going to be a change, and they're going to start opening up certain things. We're seeing in other states. We're in the state of New Jersey. I think there is a plan. I know there's a plan. I don't know what the plan is, but I haven't really read the news. But I know that the small openings are going to start being allowed. Don't know when. And so a personal question I have for you, and this has just been on my mind, and this is directly related to Aaron Spool. And then afterwards, it's just, I'm curious about all your thoughts. So what do you do with a member who's been, like me, like I even though I do this, me, yeah. But what do you do with a friend of mine has a question?
Hypothetical.
Hypothetical question. So I've been sedentary. Yeah. So if I get 2 Zoom classes, and this is from a 5-day a week to now I do, if I'm lucky, 2 Zoom classes a week, maybe 3 if I'm like super fortunate. And maybe interspersed with something else if I haven't done it. And then now I come back. And so you've got, even if the gains aren't really lost in your mind, you feel like it's going to be a shock to the system coming back. Because it's now like, wow, I can actually lift real weights. I can actually touch things. I'm more than just, the barbell, kettlebell that I have, the body weights that I'm doing. How do you transition people back? 1, so they don't hurt themselves. And 2, I think that's always something with a community like ours is to wanting to also, like, you don't want to feel like you lost anything. You don't want to be dismotivated. And if I'm coming back and I'm like, wow, I don't look as good, I don't feel as good, I'm dying here. How do you keep them, I don't say motivated because it's a different word than motivated, is how do you keep them from being disheartened? How do you keep them?
Yeah, look, I've been thinking about this for the past couple of weeks. I've been talking about this with the team. This has been the topic du jour with regards to, all right, we're getting close to reopening. What does that mean for our members? And I think what you're asking is like, how do I manage those expectations for folks as they come back into the gym? And that's challenging, right? I think that managing expectations, and regardless of what you do, is difficult for folks. But again, I think being honest and genuine with them and with what I know, having done this for 12 years and thousands of people and hours, giving them the best recommendations as possible. Now, there's a whole nother side of that. I give all these great recommendations. My coaches give all these great recommendations, but it's also your delivery mechanisms with which you do so that people actually listen, right? I mean, that's also the difficult part. I mean, before the Murph workout, I don't know how much of your folks watching this understand what Murph is, but it's a Memorial Day workout in honor of Lieutenant Murphy, who died, and it's a difficult, high volume workout of a 1 mile run, 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 air squats, and then another mile run. It's hard enough to do when you're working out all the time. And we did it yesterday via Zoom at our locations. But preemptive to launching that workout, I had gotten online and said, hey, no one should be doing this workout like this today, right? Everybody should be dialing this back, and here are some scaling opportunities for you in order to do this and participate in the spirit of the day, but not hurt yourself. And then I talked to you this morning, and you're like, I wrecked me, and I did all, and I'm like, why didn't you listen to me, Aaron? You went out there and you did it, right? So it is a challenge, right? It's proof positive. This is a challenging thing to do with folks. So, this is a conversation I've had with the team, and it's just going to have to be consistently delivering that message, right? People are going to try things and ease themselves back in at their ways, and they're not all going to get it right away. But we're going to be with them and be like, all right, we talked to you about it. You kind of chose to do it that way, but we're going to talk to you about it again now, right? And here, how can we help you get there? You and me are going to get there together. Over some time. Yes, gains are lost, and but you got them at one point. You can get them again, and I think circling back to not necessarily a new normal at the gym for you, but a better normal for you, where, all right, what can I learn about? I know so much about fitness now through my classes and my coaches, but did I really put those things into place? Now's an opportunity for me to have a better time at the gym and using those things, right? It's almost like a healthy restart for you. And that's what we're going to try to really promote to our members, is this is a chance to learn, and from what and to kind of restart it maybe in a different way. It's not move. You don't have to run so quickly. Right before you walk. You don't have to lift so heavy before you start lifting well. And those are kind of the lessons we want to share with our member base moving back in. I think that's what we as coaches, I could tell you, are excited about that chance with people, right? Sometimes things get a little crazy in the gyms. This is a chance for us to kind of reestablish our positions as coaches and experts here, and work with everybody again.
That's great. No, I'm definitely looking forward to it. So what are your thoughts? So, what's your thought process? You don't have to give me the logistics of what you exactly plan to do, but what's your methodology? Because you've gotten a really good methodology now of engaging the members and things like that, to assess and then implement, a go back strategy.
Nothing, again, you don't have to overthink this stuff. The workouts don't need to change. It's your, each individual's approach to those workouts and how we as coaches work with every individual. The coaches at our gyms are not afraid to pull people back. And I think we've got to not only continue to do that, but double down on that, right? We have a big responsibility as a team of coaches to make sure people are dialing things back. And I don't think there's any secret or magic to it other than just being a good coach and reinforcing to the team that I have is like, you are the best of the best. I mean, I really feel that about my gym, and I feel that about my team. Don't be afraid to get in there with people and get hands-on with them. I know hands-on is not very good right now. Social distance on with them, and make sure they're doing the things we need them to do. This is, again, a chance for us as a team to reestablish trust and confidence from our members that we know what we're doing. Trust us, you know, listen to us and trust us, and we're gonna help you get back to where you were.
That's
It's
awesome.
not, you know, it's not some magical programming. That's never the answer. I don't know how many of your folks are doing fitness regimens or CrossFit or other gyms, and I know people knock programming, and yeah, there's maybe some irresponsible programming, but for the most part, that's never blaming the programming is usually not the answer. It's blaming your coach or maybe someone's ego sometimes.
Fair enough. So I want to double check. So we've got a few minutes left. Double check on the chat. Bring this lesson back to the viewers. So one of the questions that popped up. So I actually bring this lesson back to our viewers' businesses. So how do I ask this question? So I'll go back to the first question that was originally asked. I said I'd ask at the end. Also, anyone who's got any questions, pop it in the chat. We've got a couple minutes left before we end the session. What is one? So you mentioned a lot. The kind of theme for this. You're excited about the new better, not just the new normal, but the new better normal, or the future coming out, which is a wonderful, uplifting, positive, and very thrilled. I'm excited. What are a couple of things that you've learned? Whoa, someone's got a. So what are a couple of things that you learned now that you're going to continue, throughout, and even more so? Like, what are one of the two things that from client engagement, to being vulnerable, whatever that is, that you intend on, like, thank God I learned this lesson. I can't wait to continue to do it.
Right. Communicate. I mean, that jumps out for me right away. It's communication. Just communicate. Looking back, I didn't communicate enough. I don't think you can communicate enough. That's what I think really helped keep everything together for my gyms, was just communicating and sharing, and also asking questions. What questions do you have? Like, what are you unsure about? Let us answer those questions. But that for me is a no-brainer. Communicate with your team, communicate with your members, and be honest with your communication. Don't be afraid. They shouldn't know this. Maybe I shouldn't say this. I was just upfront and honest. That was it.
So I got a question, just sort of from lessons back to viewers, and trying to bring this back. Something interesting about quality control. So your offering, and I can tell this for any folks as I can speak, as I know as a customer base, very much is about form. So making sure you have safe form. And when you're physically able to see somebody, you can see that they have the right form. With a Zoom class, it's no matter how good of a coach you have, if your camera's not set up right, which I can guarantee mine isn't, how do you know that person's being safe? Now, is it because you've designed, maybe it's a combination of design classes that's kind of really hard to mess up the form? Or like, what do you do? Yeah.
That was one of the very first challenges, was like that, as you know, that is our bread and butter, and what we, it's kind of who we are as an organization, is we put your movement mechanics above all else, right? Nothing else can happen until those things happen. And you're moving well for us. So thankfully for us, well, look, you're not onboarding new clients right now, right? So the members that you do have there on your Zoom classes are your members, and you generally know them, and the coaches know them. So we kind of already know before you even hit your first squat of the day, all right, I know Aaron does this, So not such a big issue for us, number one. Again, we're not onboarding new members right now that we really don't know. Number two, right away you learned, hey, if you want me to pay better attention to your squat, I need you to turn 90 degrees to your camera and let me see that. Otherwise, if you're fine doing what you're doing and it's an air squat, continue to go right along. But I think, again, it's just having that comfort level with your members. I think, again, knowing every single member we know your name. We're able to talk to you through the Zoom sessions, and hey, if you want me to help you here, I need you to turn your camera angle or turn around, and we'll help you out. So that was not a problem for us at all.
No, that's That's great. So I would say if I could sum up some of the things that you said of just business wisdom that you've given, one is the giving yourself some space, and so giving yourself kind of being generous with yourself, being okay with, hey, I don't have to have the answers today. I think that's a theme that I heard. Two is not being afraid to be vulnerable and not being afraid to tell people what's going on. And the third part of that is an asking permission of people. It's like not be afraid to ask person, hey, I want to ask your permission. Like, I need this from you. And I need permission. Like, I'm going to ask, not asking your clientele, not only your employees, but your clientele, your customers, of things, and asking them of that, not being afraid of what that might show. And I think those would be of the major takeaways that I could take. Anything else that you want to add that you think that besides that of just like lessons you could tell a fellow entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think for going forward in the world we're living in now, I do think that this kind of flows through any kind of organization or community, is I've kind of narrowed it down for me. I've started to really think, like, how do I make this simple that I can kind of live this now moving forward? And for me, I broke it into three things: is education, common sense, and selflessness. I think that we, obviously we see things change every day, right? We don't know what's happening with this virus or how it's spreading. Is it spreading on surfaces? Is it not? What do I have to do in my gym to make sure that, we're going to be safe? So I think continuing to educate ourselves as much as we can at all times is super important. I think common sense goes a long way. We all need to just stop for a second, use your common sense. And three is, I think a bit of selflessness goes a long way. Just take a second to care about the person next to you before you necessarily make a decision for yourself. How is this going to affect that person? I think if we all move forward, and I'm certainly just thinking within my gym walls, if I just look at that person 6 feet away from me, and am I going to affect them with what I'm doing here? Maybe I can adjust a little bit. Do that. And I think if we all kind of did that, just keep understanding what's going on, use some common sense with stuff, and just care about your fellow person. I think you can probably get through a hell of a lot of things in a better way.
That's awesome. I was writing those down as you're saying that. I'll try to put this together in a summary as well. Question from one of our attendees here. How are you going to keep community with social distancing? And how will you keep customer experience strong with new rules / social distancing? And will you continue Zoom for a while?
Yeah, so I'll start from the bottom up. We're definitely going to continue to Zoom for a while. I've already had discussions with members. It's not a black and white situation of, okay, we can open up tomorrow. That's it. Zoom is over. We're back to class. There's certainly people that are ready for that. And I think that there's also a lot of people that are not ready for that. And you have to address that. And there's got to be this kind of a transitionary period, I feel, where you've got to offer a little bit of both. So I think continuing the Zoom classes, at some level is important. It's what we're going to do. Keeping the customer experience strong with the new rules and social distancing, I don't think we're gonna have any problem with that. One of the things we said from day one with the Zoom classes is that the Zoom classes are not only serving to keep your fitness up, but it's serving to keep the community together and in touch with each other. So I know a lot of folks have home gyms and the like. I know you want to build one yourself. And as much as I think that those things are great, I really urge my community, again, back to the selflessness part. Would I like to just go in my garage right now and do my own thing? Sure, some days I would, but you've chosen to be part of a community. Get on that Zoom call. Stay connected with your community, because there's other folks on there that don't have that. And this gym is together because we've stayed tight as a community. So I've always, throughout this process, encouraged that folks get on those Zoom classes. I think when we get back to the gym, it's like, if you're comfortable with the Zoom, stay on the Zoom. Our gyms are not huge. They're, I think Paramus is a little bit bigger than the Montclair gym at like 6,000 square feet. So we're, 4,000 to 6,000 square feet gyms. It's not that hard to even though we're social distancing, we're still, pretty close with each other. I'm sure there'll be conversations going on. I don't see any problem with that. We have a very strong presence with regards to our Facebook member page. People are constantly talking. And it's just like, you know, we're doing here, just keep the conversations going. And my community has presented itself as being so strong through this. I don't have any fears of us having any problems going back.
That's tremendous. So Charles, any other final questions before we wrap this up?
No, I think you guys really pretty much hit on everything.
Thanks.
All right, so thank you, Greg. Thank you again for coming. I look forward to physically one day seeing you again. Obviously, I'll see you in all the community chats. Now I'm reinvigorated to make sure I pop into the Zoom classes. And once again, thank you for all that you do for the community, for all you do for me, and for especially also being on as a guest in the Business Emergency Room. Everyone that's
really fun.
Awesome. Thank you. Everyone that's attended, thank you also. We will be obviously posting this later, and we'll send out all the information there. Greg and the community, thank you all again. Tune back next week for our next session. Usually unless told otherwise, it's every Tuesday between 12:30 and 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard. All right, folks, thank you again and take care.